Good Sunday morning. Today on Perspectives, the most recent huge lottery jackpot gave away $500 million to the winner. And although Alabama doesn't have a lottery, thousands of our family, friends, and neighbors helped fuel it, spending millions buying tickets at stores in the states that surround us. Is Alabama ready to stop the lottery dollars flow out of the state? That's a question this morning. Two lottery proposals were introduced in this year's legislative session. The first came from Alabama State Senator Jim McClendon. In addition to having a statewide lottery, the Springville, Alabama legislator also wants to allow video lottery terminals at dog tracks in the state. Now, the second lottery proposal comes from State Senator Greg Albritton, whose legislative district spans parts of Baldwin County and 4 other South Alabama counties. Senator Albritton's bill allows a statewide lottery, but limits it to paper-based games only. You may remember any lottery, if passed by the legislature, has to be approved by voters in a statewide referendum. Of course, lottery bills have been introduced in the past only to die in the state legislature. Now, back in 1999, though, voters rejected a statewide lottery proposed by then-Governor Don Siegelman. The other big question, if a lottery is approved by voters, then how is the revenue going to be spent? Today on Perspectives, you'll hear how the two bills in the Alabama legislature would divide the profits. In addition, you'll hear why some are opposed, though, to having a lottery. And there are concerns that lottery revenue is not the big payout as many believe, an issue that will also be explored this morning. But one thing's for sure, the lottery is an issue that generates a lot of talk, especially when news headlines are all about the latest multi-million-dollar jackpot. Fox News reporter Michael Warren talked to some folks who traveled to Florida in March hoping for a big Powerball win.
A busy day across the state line into Florida. A $550 million Powerball bringing people from Mobile and Baldwin counties.
Well, I'm going to win it, so everybody just might as well go home.
But money isn't the only thing on the mind of these shoppers.
And we didn't get to vote on the gas tax. At least let us vote on the lottery.
Adding to the excitement, legislation introduced this week that would legalize the lottery in Alabama if the people voted in.
We're losing our money, to bring it this way. So, I ain't got nothing against Florida, but I'm from Alabama.
Some of these Alabama folks coming to this Florida Lotto store every week.
So for 30 years I've been buying lottery tickets, and I would have been buying them in Alabama.
The overwhelming majority questioning why their Alabama dollars aren't being spent in Alabama.
I had kids, I got grandkids, and I want my kids to be able to benefit from the dollars that we're spending everywhere else.
Why spend the money in Florida?
Florida, the money could go back in Alabama,
sure.
As they said, for education and, infrastructure improvement. I'm all for it.
And again, that was Fox News reporter Michael Warwick. Alabama is one of only 5 states where the lottery is not legal. The other states are Alaska, Hawaii, Nevada, and Utah. Here this morning to talk about state lotteries, Pete Ring joins us, co-founder of the Common Sense campaign in South Alabama. Pete will share his concerns. And Fox News investigative reporter Brendan Kirby. Brendan has some interesting facts regarding lotteries in other states as well. This morning we'll also hear from Senator Greg Albritton about the bill that he's proposed. Plus, photojournalist Randy Lowe and I talked to some of you asking your opinion. Is it time for the lottery in Alabama? Perspectives continues this morning after we hear from 2 of you taking us to the break.
I believe that we should have the right to vote on something like that. I believe the lottery will be good in Alabama. It would help schools, roads, and other things around that we need help with financially.
Well, I think the people need to have a say in the matter. And, I would play it. I go to Florida often, and play. It'd be nice to have it here locally.
I think people should have a right to vote on it. And I think people want to play the lottery, they should have the right, and I think the people don't want to, they need to stay somewhere else. It's real simple to me.
That's not the way I want to earn my money. I want God to bless me with my money, the honest way. So lotto, I don't do that, gambling, none of that, it's not for me.
Welcome back this morning. And Alabama State Senator Jim McClendon's lottery proposal was introduced in the first weeks of this year's legislative session. One of McClendon's bills would bring the issue to a vote of the people. Now, he held a news conference explaining his reasons why he supports the lottery.
Please keep in mind, I am not offering this lottery bill to solve our financial problems. I'm offering this lottery bill so people don't have to drive to another state to buy a lottery ticket, and we're going to make some money off of it.
That's Senator McClendon. Now, a few days ago, I sat down with State Senator Greg ALBRITTON, who represents 5 South Alabama counties, including a part of Baldwin County, to discuss his lottery proposal. Now, his bill promotes a paper-only lottery.
The lottery bill, there's two. What mine does is it first off restricts gambling. It keeps what's existing. We don't disturb anything that's already there. They've already been there for some time. The communities are dependent on them. They have legislation that's been passed to allow that to occur. So we're not going to try to involve ourselves or prevent that from continuing. But what the bill does do is it restricts further growth. All right, there is no more video one-armed bandits. All right, there's no more video gaming that will be allowed under this. Then it goes into the lottery. It allows the state of Alabama to join in with the national lotteries, Powerball, Megabucks, those things specifically calls for that. But it requires that any lottery games be paper-based, in conjunction with what we are already allowing and doing. So everything that you buy, when you go in and you buy a lottery ticket, it'll be a paper ticket. If you do the instant cash, it'll be a paper ticket. If you get the scratch off, it'll be a paper ticket. There's not electronics involved with that. We have those electronic things are quite interesting, and they can be changed very quickly. Paper gives us greater control. Those that are in existence will continue. PCI will continue as they're doing it, but there's not any, this will prevent any growth from occurring. One thing PCI would like to do is they'd like to have a separate site off tribal lands and be licensed to do business. This bill would obstruct that. We are surrounded, every state around us now has a lottery, every single one. And every single one sings about how much money they're generating, how much well they're doing, and all this. And I don't know how much of that is true. I doubt all of it is true. I don't believe that a lottery is going to be the panacea for all of our trials and troubles, okay? It's not going to be. But from what I believe I hear in my 5-county district is that they want to be able to say yes or no.
And speaking of the PCI mentioned in that interview with Senator ALBRITTON, he's talking about the Porch Creek gambling interest. Now today on Perspectives, Pete Ream joins us. Pete, of course, as mentioned, co-founder of the Common Sense campaign in South Alabama. He joins us this morning, along with our Fox News investigative reporter, Brendan Kirby. Gentlemen, both welcome you to Perspectives this morning. Pete, when you hear these two senators talking, number one, both Republican, both having interest, familiar interest here in South Alabama. What's your first response when you hear it from two Republican senators expressing
Well, my
this?
first response to Senator McClendon is I can't believe he said out loud, we're not doing it for the money. It's all about the money. I mean, that's what they're doing. I don't disagree with having a vote, right? You want to have a vote. You want to let the people have a vote. I disagree with the state profiting off of people's, what do you want to call it, lack of a better word, vices or their indulgences or whatever. And I mean, so, you know, we tax alcohol. And if people abuse it, there becomes problems. We tax cigarettes, which causes health problems. Really, a lottery is a very cynical tax because you've got, I think, a 1 in 176 million chance of winning. You got a greater chance of being hit by lightning than winning the lotto. So really what you're doing, it's very cynical. You're dangling this here and you're getting people, and it hits poor people more than anybody because they're all, oh, we can win it here. it's like a tax for nothing. And you're literally exploiting the people. And I guess in a cynical way, you can say, well, we get them to pay higher taxes because we make them think they can win a lotto. So we're getting a lot of tax money. And I'm not sure that you should have your government exploiting its citizens that way. I mean, why not, you know, take that to legalizing all drugs and just make tax money off of that. So I think there's a moral component there.
And we'll talk more about that this morning, because many say that you're also fueling the interest in creating a gambling addiction now for many of the people who are participating. Brendan, you've done a lot of research in other lotteries. Are they as successful for the states as we've heard them to be?
Well, you know, lotteries do bring in money. In fiscal year 2017, states made about $23 billion collectively on the lottery. Now, that sounds like a lot, but it amounts to about 1% of state budgets on average. So one thing I think people need to keep in perspective is, if we have a lottery, it's not going to solve all of Alabama's fiscal problems. You know, we won't be just rolling around in the land of honey. It will make a little bit of money for the state, and depending on how you spend that, it might do some good, but it's really not that much money in the scheme of things, and then you have to balance that against you know, some of the other things people
We'll talk more about those numbers when we come back, and right now we're going to hear more from Republican Senator Greg Albritton when we come back from the break this morning on why, after years of saying no to a lottery, he's changed his mind.
Because it's for the people, we should have the final say on it.
I think the state should vote on it, and personally, with all the surrounding states, that it seems like our dollars are just pouring out, and the need for revenue, and it'd be good for business and industry to keep taxes low, and I think they ought to seriously consider it.
The right to vote on it, and I would love to see it in Mobile, because it'll take a lot of people from traveling all the way to Florida to try to play the lottery and stuff, and then they'll probably bring more money to Mobile. And
I think you should have the right to vote on it. I don't personally want one, but I know the money goes to other states, so I think we should vote. I'll vote no, but we should vote.
Welcome back. Today on Perspectives, we're discussing the lottery issue in Alabama, and you're hearing different ideas and opinions from those that we've talked to. Now, we have one additional information from Republican Senator Greg Albritton. We talked to him earlier this week on his proposed lottery bill and why he's sponsoring a lottery bill.
You are a Republican, and
yes.
What did you see at this time for this to be something that would be well received in Alabama?
And I voted against every lottery bill that's been up, okay? So why am I sponsoring this? A couple reasons. Number one is I'm being bombarded by my constituents about giving them the opportunity. All right, I live in ATMORE, and the traffic jam between my house and the state line occurs periodically. I think there is seems to be a demand that we go this route. This bill will give that opportunity for Alabamians to say, yes, we want the lottery. Not any other kind of gambling, but we want the lottery. That's what this bill does.
And how important is that for the voters to decide this time?
I think it's pretty important. From what I'm hearing, most people want that ability to say yes or no at least, and I'm working to do that. Now, the reason I'm carrying this bill is because when you start getting into that, most other bills that have come forward have tried to expand gambling, trying to involve other things, whether it be greater videos or whatever. It expands things. My bill doesn't do that. The second thing is, where's the money going? I'm chairman of the general fund, so guess where the funds are coming? Okay, it's coming to the general fund. General fund's has been strangled for a long, long time. We do the best with the least that I can see. Now, specifically what we do is, in my bill, is that we take the first monies coming off for the state. That goes directly to repay the trust fund, the state trust fund, in which we continue to owe $153 million. We're trying to pay that back. Okay, in fact, we've stepped up some payments, but it's still $153 million. We'll use this lottery for the first year, maybe two, in which that monies can be completely repaid. Get that off the table. The second thing is, after that's paid, is we divide 50-50. 50% goes to the state trust fund to build it up. One reason for that is because the interest coming off that trust fund is the greatest contributor to the general fund. That's where most of our growth comes from. So that will boost that. And then the other half comes straight to the general fund.
State Senator Greg Albritton, we're hearing from him there. Now, Peteriehm again joins us. He's with the co-founder of the Common Sense Campaign in South Alabama, and our Fox News investigative reporter, Brendan Kirby. Pete, when you hear the argument about how much is going away to the surrounding states, how do you respond to that and that concern of all the millions that we lose every year?
Well, I mean, I think people don't like to know that some of our Alabama money is going to other states, but I mean, I would look at it, I would hope the Alabamians are smarter than that, and they're not making a drive to Pensacola or Atlanta or wherever they're going to buy these tickets, because again, the chances of winning, you know, I'm obviously not a gambler. I know some people might want to do that. But
how many winners do you know?
Right. We're inviting these people to throw their money away. I mean, what if we did it a different way? What if we just said, look, we're going to put a tax on all poor people, and we're just going to collect your money and put it to the general fund, whatever the tax would be. You're not going to get anything for it. How's that really different than the lottery? Because all we did was put a nice colored ticket on it, and we're still going to take your money, and you're generally not going to get anything for it.
And you've thrown the chance factor in. When you look at the change in the parties now, we've got Republicans now, of course, in the dominant position, and now they are introducing this, and that was once something you could depend on. I guess you could say that they would be opposing it.
Right. Well, I think that goes back to Senator McClendon. He said it wasn't about the money, but that is what it's about. It's the budget shortfalls that they have, and I think what we're seeing is the legislature is not really managing the budget properly. That's why we had to have the gas tax. That's why we have infrastructure problems. That's why we got prison problems, because they're not properly managing the budget. And so they're looking for any way to tap whatever source. Oh, this is good, we'll throw that money in there. And my concern is that relieves them of doing the heavy lifting of really looking at the budget. Where can we save? Where can we do better? Or a healthy revenue source. And look, I'm not typically for taxes, but a healthy revenue source. And I think the gas tax could have been done better if they would have said, look, we're going to come out, we backed ourselves into a corner, we need a couple of cents now, but we're going to go that 60 million that we're diverting, we're going to get that back to infrastructure. Okay. You know, there's ways to do that.
And Brendan, has it worked in any states where they have gotten the money and applied it in a way that where it is working for the state?
Well, there's 44 different lotteries and probably 44 different laws deciding how to divvy that out. I think what some states have found is if you dedicate that to a specific program, then you become dependent on that revenue source, and what we see is over time it tends to decline over time, or it's unstable because there's a surge of excitement when you first get it, and then it kind of diminishes after that. I talked about that $23 billion. According to the Census Bureau, that was essentially flat from the year before, but it declined in 31 out of the 44 states. It was lower in 2017 than it was the year before.
So things will change.
So things change, and that forces
states to come. In your opinion, do you think Alabama is getting into the game too late?
Well, you know, I mean, the more gambling there is, the more it gets saturated, obviously, and the later you are to it, the more you spread that apart. States have seen this with casinos.
Hold that thought, and we're going to come back, and when we come back, we'll hear more about that. Now, as we head to the break, two ladies tell us that having the lottery in Alabama would be more convenient, in their opinion, and keep more dollars in the state.
I would like to see it. I don't buy a whole lot of lottery tickets. Every once in a while, if I'm over vacationing in Florida, I pick one up. But I do know people who, you know, just kind of enjoy a little chance. Why not?
Oh, I play it every once in a while. I wouldn't play it all the time, but now I heard Mississippi's got it, and it'd be cheaper to go to Mississippi than it would be to Florida. So Alabama better get with it, or else Florida and Mississippi's going to get all our money.
We can learn from the mistakes of other states and probably refine ours. And I don't know what the concerns are, and I'm sure they're valid, but the ones that I see is just we just need to improve our roads, our streets, and keep taxes as low as possible and keep it from going from Florida, Mississippi, and wherever else it goes.
And we're joined again, PETERIEHM, along with Brendan Kirby here as we're talking about a possible state lottery. Does he have good points or not?
Well, I think you got to be careful saying that we want that to go to these certain programs, because Brendan was bringing that up. One of the problems in Alabama is, and you probably know the number, it's 80 to 90% of the budget is earmarked. So there is no flexibility in the general fund. So if you earmark this again and all of a sudden, let's say it goes to the education fund, well, what you wind up happening is you turn the education lobbyists into gambling advocates, because they now go, that's our money, we need to keep it. So I would kind of support that would go in the general fund, but I don't know that it solves problems. You're taxing people's, it's a tax on people's either misbehavior or misery or whatever you want to call it. You're exploiting them.
How do you re-educate the public to understand this is not for you when you think about the odds and the chance of winning this?
You know, I don't know how you do that, and I don't know if that's the state's job or maybe your pastor's job to say, why are you driving to Florida twice a week to buy a lotto ticket? Right. You know.
So, Brendan, when you look at this and Alabama evaluating all of the other states, and you said 44 other states, and where it's working in their opinion and where, of course, we look at the stats and it's not working, how does Alabama get into this now and do it right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what what your definition of working is. Working, that we are generating a huge amount of revenue and it solves our budget problems, no. Working that you do bring in a little bit of revenue, you do. I've talked to experts who are kind of skeptical of these kinds of programs, and they say if you are going to do it, keep your expectations low and don't try to become dependent on that revenue for some specific need that you have. Use it to maybe boost revenue to the general fund generally, or as Senator Albritton's proposal was, to build up that state oil and gas revenue trust funds that the legislature borrowed from several years ago, and then that way it's more of a rainy day thing, and that'd be better. But again, just the saturation issue.
Florida is number 3 in revenue generating from lotteries. Is it working for Florida?
Yeah, well, I mean, Florida's had some issues where they had dedicated it to education programs, and the allegation is, well, when lawmakers had this source of revenue coming in, it's kind of like the two-card Monty. They just cut spending on education from other sources, and the schools didn't really end up with anything more. But we see this with different kinds of gambling as well. The new one is sports betting. The Supreme Court said states can do sports betting. A bunch of states rushed in to allow it. It's an interesting stat out of Rhode Island. They actually lost $900,000 on sports betting in February.
And as you mentioned, that's one that's now consuming everyone, even here on the Gulf Coast.
And Mississippi is getting into it as well. But they actually lost $900,000, mainly because of the Super Bowl with the Patriots winning. Everyone bet on that, and the House lost. But they expected $10.5 million in this fiscal year at this point for the first 4 months. Their actual take was $150,000.
Gentlemen, I thank you both for joining us this morning. Never enough time to get everything in, but would you vote for one, Pete?
No.
Okay. All right, for more information on the lottery bills currently in the Alabama legislature, you can reach out to Senators Jim McClendon and Greg Albritton at the numbers you see there on the screen. Now join us next Sunday morning at 7:30 for Perspectives again as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. And if you have any ideas or topics you'd like for us to address, email it to us at perspectives@fox10tv.com. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week.